Let's go.
Let's rock.
Jimmy Juice Podcast, man.
Let's go.
Figgy, best in the world, that's what he do, know what I'm talking about. Ryan Rockett, born and raised in the H-Town, Houston, Texas. Know what I'm saying? Let's go.
Let's go in the jacuzzi, smoking threats. I got my feet up. Cut them haters off, I told them beat it. I don't need you. Spend 50 racks in cash, but it's all good. I got my visa. This rolling got on staring at me like the Mona Lisa. My ghetto, Nike's. I beat it like a creature. She always like my sneakers. These Jordan 5 pink aces. Let's go. I'm knocking them down back to back in the row. He beat it a one, but they already know. So none of my chains go put on the show.
Giving out gins, sipping my juice. Counting the beans, addicted to ends. Need to back in on whatever I do. We get it in on the daily. I get it rocking like this with the 80. We really 10 toe down on the page. What's up? We about to see what they saying.
Rockin' gym, vippin' juice. Rockin' gym, vippin' juice. Rockin' gym, vippin' juice. Rockin' gym, vippin' juice. Let's go. Gym, vippin' juice. Rockin' gym, vippin' juice. Rockin' gym, vippin' juice. Rockin' gym, vippin' juice. Go, let's go.
What do you have to say to everyone if we still consider the Astros cheaters? Fuck y'all.
That last part always cracks me up.
It does, man. It really gets me. It gets me a little emotional too, especially like thinking of how it feels so long ago that all the teams in Houston were actually good. It
Yeah,
feels like it was like 15 years ago, man. It was only like 5 or so years ago, but it feels like it was a long time ago.
yeah.
And now we done went from pray for Victor to please take us back, James Harden.
Yeah.
So,
And some dude named Amen Thompson or something.
yeah, people I've never heard of suddenly.
I'm like, who is? I've never heard of this dude before.
Oh man, yeah, we gotta get the scraps. The scraps. Hey, hopefully there's like a Jason Tatum type, somebody who's just not talked about and then ends up being a superstar. But yeah, man, Houston sports is looking kind of rough.
Yeah.
It's, well, only a few. It was all good just a week ago, like Jay-Z said.
Yeah.
But we are back at it with a very, very surprise Thursday stream we got for y'all. And we're doing a surprise Thursday stream because we have a very special guest joining us this evening. This is a man we've known for a long time, man. Me and Figgy have known this guy for a long time. I've known him for probably close to like 10 years now.
Oh, wow.
Since
Okay.
I first got into Sportsradio 610. And as I was a young, doe-eyed producer trying to make his way and thought he had a future in the industry, you know. But this guy is a legend in the game, man. He's hosting, of course, the morning show alongside Sean Pendergast. Of course, he's had a 10-year NFL career, was an OG Houston Texan, played with the team for 5 years. And he joins us now to finally we get to talk, because I never really talked to this guy, man.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to. We never had like a heart-to-heart or a tete-a-tete or anything like that. We never got to pick his brain about anything. So I'm very excited to welcome our guest. The great Seth Payne joins us this evening.
Hey, I feel I'm happy to be here, but now I feel really guilty about never having had a heart-to-heart with you before.
I mean, you're a very busy guy, man, and it's not like we could just stick around after the show and talk about nothing, you know.
All
So
fake hustle. Yeah.
It's usually, hey, what's up, man? How you doing? And keep it moving.
Yeah, I don't know. The secret, I honestly, people think I'm joking when I say this. I'm pretty sure I'm a little bit autistic. I just I've learned how to hide it really, really well. But yeah. So that's don't worry, man. It's not your fault. It's mine. Whatever non-conversations we've had.
But I will say this though, man, because it's always stuck with me. Because I know when I first got a Sports Radio 610, like I didn't know anybody, and I never been around like NFL players like that. So I assumed like you guys were going to be the most diva-ish or the most bougie of the on-air talent. So I was expecting y'all to like never talk to me. but I always remember like you and Ted Johnson were the first ones like in the studio or in the station period to come up to me and talk to me and like be real with me and ask me questions and ask where I'm from and what I'm doing. So I always thought that was cool, man, because I always thought you guys would be the most like, you know, you wouldn't talk to a lowly board op like us.
Yeah.
But you were actually the most cool. So I always appreciated that,
That's
man.
fun. Yeah, it's interesting because I think, I mean, everybody's different. You got jerks on every team and great guys on every team. But I think for the most part, you spend your whole professional life in team sports. And, from growing up doing it through school, and then you do it for another 10 or 15 years in college and the NFL. I think that's just part of like being a good part of a team, is trying to get to know as many people as possible. And it's and also it's funny. I never really thought about it this way. Like on an NFL team, there's a lot of guys mixing that would be like maybe under conventional circumstances, there might be more like separation. Like in a company, you kind of got the mailroom workers and you got front office, you got the white collar types. But like in an NFL locker room, the interns, the equipment guys, the athletic trainers, the security guard, like everybody just kind of commingles. And they're not, unless you're a jerk, nobody really acts like there's a status or a hierarchy there.
That makes sense because you always see, and I do see that in basketball games too. Like the players will talk with like everybody on the staff. So that's one thing I notice about athletes. I don't think that's much the case in show business. A lot of the I don't think the key grip is talking to the main stars. So
better not, right?
Tom Cruise on you.
Yeah. That's no, I think yeah, well, plus, I mean, like you guys, the board ops and the producers and everybody like that, you guys just have so much technical expertise that I just never, I never thought of it. I never like thought for a moment that there would be any reason not to talk to you guys. We're kind of screwed without these guys. So they're kind of a big deal.
Yeah, you won't believe it though, man. It's a lot of talent out. On-air personalities that just treat the board ops like they're really just the board op.
Really?
Like it's their personal assistant or producer.
Like go do this and get me that and just no kidding.
Yeah, so that kind of make us like not really want to do much. Like, all right, I'm gonna just do the bare minimum.
Yeah, I see how it's going.
I'm gonna keep my headphones off. I'm not about to pay attention. I'm gonna just go to break when I'm told to go to break.
Well, it was because of you guys in this podcast / YouTube channel / Twitch that I learned that like it almost wasn't that way, right, Ryan? Because there's a little bit of a gap in maybe the way I use the word buddy and the way you perceive the word buddy.
So let's get into that. Let's get into that now, because for people who didn't catch that whole the saga of the buddy. So me and Figgy were talking on the podcast, and I forget how this came up. We're talking about like passive aggressive things people might say or things people might call you that kind of annoy you. And Figgy mentioned buddy, and like somebody called like, "Hey, buddy, what's going on, buddy?" And he mentioned that Seth Payne does it. So we were talking about it, but we knew you didn't mean it in a mean way.
Yeah.
But just the fact that it can be seen as a condescending thing for people to say. And you and Sean talked about it on your show, and you guys were shocked that it could be taken in that context.
Yeah.
Yeah, because see how I grew up, whenever somebody used the word buddy, it's in a negative way. It's never like a, hey, buddy, how you doing? It's more like, look at buddy over there, think he all that.
Yeah, that's like a thing. I don't think, and Ryan, you and I are closer to the same age. So I just don't think, I never heard like buddy being used that way. Like I've never heard that like growing up. Like so I think it's I don't know. I felt awful about it though. And now I think back to like various times in my life where with like Uber drivers or something that maybe somebody just thought I was being a complete asshole because you call it buddy, because like just what you were saying, if somebody treats somebody else like they're lower in station than them, and I'm like talking to an Uber driver and I call him buddy, he might be thinking like, oh, this guy, huh? Oh, he thinks 1 star his ass.
and that's what got me too, because the examples you and Sean brought up, I don't think y'all saw the irony in using those. Like I think Sean said, "Yeah, I talk to the doorman. I call him Buddy all the time."
Yeah.
And then you posted the clip from Stranger Things where the cop calls a little kid Buddy, and I'm like,
yeah. And I still didn't get it. Even when you pointed out, I was like, no, these are positive examples. So, a child, you tussle his hair. Or Ryan Rockett. Call him Buddy.
What's funny is I'll be so negative on the word buddy, but I call my dog Buddy. My dog named Stanley. I'm like, hey,
Buddy is a cute name for a child or a dog.
Dog or something. Right.
Lower than me, Buddy.
Boy, okay, I get it. Yeah, but I do say it to everybody. I was about to say that's how I had called my child, like up through the first few years there. Well, I still say Buddy. Into all my I say it to adults too. But yeah, you're right. The examples we were bringing up, there's something there. There's definitely something there.
Yeah, and I did make it clear when we talked about it on the podcast before that you didn't mean it that way. But whenever you say Buddy, or when you used to say Buddy to me, I used to kind of perk up like, wait, what? But I knew you didn't mean it that way, just with your energy.
Yeah, and we knew it wasn't a racial connotation either. I know you brought that up. It's not like the guy in OKC who said Russell Westbrook is playing out of his cotton picking mind and he didn't understand. It was nothing like that.
The cotton picking thing though too, that was another one that like I just never thought about it before. And like you just it's one of those things I think once you know it, you feel like everybody should know it, obviously. But like I just never like I grew up in the North too, so it just was less of a part of even the the history or anything of that region. So when it was explained to me, I'm pretty sure I never used it like towards. It's not like a common expression. It feels like you got to go out of your way to use that expression these days. Except, yeah.
It's funny because like even with that expression, like I heard it my mother used to say. She said it to me a few times as a kid. But I never really put two and two together until that OKC stuff happened where I'm like, oh, yeah, like I ain't think about it in that type of way. It was just like, you out your damn mind, or, some people say, you out your cotton picking mind.
Yeah.
So I just kind of took it like that. So I ain't really think of it, the racial part to it, I guess.
Who's the NBA player that used the Jewish slur that he didn't realize it was a Jewish slur? It was maybe it was
wasn't it somebody who got like kicked out the league for that?
It was somebody who played for Miami, I want to say.
Yeah, I forget his name, but I know you're talking about.
There was somebody who like genuinely used it and I think didn't like it's a word, it's a slur that starts with K, but it's like it's never used.
Oh, it was Myers Leonard. That's right.
That's right.
Myers Leonard.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And it's like it's not something you would hear. Like how do you guys feel on that? When somebody says that, like I really honestly didn't even know it was a slur. Do you believe them, or is it so you feel like okay, no, you knew something about that?
Here's the thing: like people like to play dumb and be slick, and that's what throws me off because I don't know if y'all saw that whole Barstool. It wasn't a Barstool. It was a Boston radio guy. I guess the topic was famous nips or whatever.
Yeah.
And the guy said Mina Kimes and looked at the dude and was chuckling. Like I know what nip meant as a slur. I knew it was a Japanese slur. Some people didn't know it was a slur. So they figured like there's no way this guy could have known that. But clearly like he was being like tongue in cheek with it. You could tell he was grinning to his buddy, and in the video you could tell he was like, he knew what he said.
Yeah.
And he knew the context. He was trying to be funny.
That's it, but also trying to make it look like what it was more. No,
exactly.
This is just good old-fashioned misogyny.
He said he meant Mina Kunis or something. So yeah, it was a mess.
There was every now and then though too, you come across a word or something that you feel like this has got to be a slur, right? I'm gonna stay away. I don't know what this word is, but it feels like a slur, so I'm just not gonna read it. I'm like, I can't go there.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's very touchy with certain people. But let's get to you, man. We see you out there on Augusta National. Looks like, man, you're in a beautiful, beautiful range, making us look bad basic over here in our studio settings. So, how have you been, man? How have you been holding up?
I'm good. I'm having fun. This has been like on the work side of stuff with D'Amico coming back and like an organization that seemed completely lost and twisting in the wind. It's weird how everything changed and did a 180 over the course of just a few months. So like that part's been fun just as a sports fan, and that's obviously what we talk about a lot. And then just it's weird. I've been in radio for 10 years now, and like when I get into it, I didn't know how long I'd last, and everything's changing all the time, but I really enjoy what I'm doing. And like I'm enjoying getting into, basically because of like you guys and Landry and a few other people, I've realized like, okay, I got to start streaming and doing this kind of stuff too, because that's where everything's going. So it's weird. I was talking to somebody about it the other day who's also my age. He's 48. I'm 48. And like when I was younger, I thought people were completely full of shit when they said that life gets better in your 40s. Because I was like, well, whatever. You tell yourself whatever you got to tell yourself. But there's something that happened, I think, with me, where I just kind of like over the course of the past 5-6 years, you just kind of examine your priorities and think about what you really care about, and learn to, like all the cliches, like not sweat the small stuff, learn how to not give a fuck about certain things. And you just get I've gotten a perspective on life that I don't think I had before. So I'm enjoying life more now than I ever did, I think, when I was like young and in my teens and 20s and 30s.
I mean, that's really good to hear. Especially because when I first met you, you seem like you're very angry a lot at times, man. Like, and I don't know if that was that the dynamic you had with Mike. Like, you guys just would get into it over things, and just that got you upset, or do you think in general you were quick to?
What's funny is that's why I thought the name of the show was Mad Radio.
Yeah,
yeah.
Two dudes who was always mad.
So, yeah, it was actually it was Meltzer and Davies, who's Brad Davies was the original host. Yeah,
I didn't know that until like a year ago.
Yeah, really? Yeah, I know, it made sense. Yeah, and we do mad takes and everything.
Yeah.
I was always like, yeah, like back then, one of our listeners described me as either a happy, angry person or I think a happy person who's angry a lot. And I think like that was one of the things that happened was partly, I think Meltzer and I, is that wind blowing too? I don't have a wind screen.
No, you're fine.
Okay. I think Meltzer and I probably had a dynamic where we were more combative. So like, yeah, on radio, that was way more like we just argued with each other a lot more. There was that. But I think like from the time I was a kid, I think I just grew up where, my dad had a temper, and I learned that was the way you handled things, and that was the way you settled things. And it was just kind of ingrained in me. And I used it as a weapon and as a tool at times. It's a powerful tool if you use it appropriately in the right moments. But then like with time and age, you realize like, okay, I'm not actually winning a lot of these debates. I'm just overpowering people, which isn't A, like the correct thing to do, or B, the thing that makes you most popular in life. And then I kind of just did a spreadsheet of it in my mind of like, all right, let me think about like when does this anger that I seem to be plagued with actually help me out or make things better? And it's a pretty bad balance sheet, when you look at it, of the times that it's actually worth getting angry versus trying to stay calm or placid about things. And like like there was nothing really dramatic about it. It was as simple as that. Like when I did the math in my head, all of a sudden I realized, well, this is just dumb. Like this is absurd to be angry like this. And life's too short for it. So I kind of flipped a switch there, and along with doing a lot of like mindfulness type stuff and getting a real strict exercise regimen and everything, I think I just kind of squeezed it out of me. But okay, I'd say that like the precipitating incidents would be at least a couple times when Mike and I like either quit the show or he walked out or whatever. The time he called me unbearable 17 times in a row. And then there's like when Josh and I got into it on Radio Row, that was, there were reasons behind that, but like I could have handled it a whole lot differently. I think, and Josh knew how to push my buttons. So like a few of those incidents, I realized like I don't want to be this guy my whole life.
So I always wanted to ask you this. I was kind of nervous to ask you, but do you get upset when people bring those incidents up, like in a joking way? Because, you know, I got a lot of drops on the show. I do not have a unbearable drop.
Yeah.
I haven't. I just want to stay away from that because, you know, it was an unfortunate situation, incident. But do you get upset when people bring that up?
Well, no, because it's not like it's because it was funny. I mean, it is a funny thing. And so I guess part of it is it was a painful time. So for those of you who don't know, like Mike Meltzer and I had been co-hosts. We got along great for the most part, but every now and then we'd have a blow up. And just one day he'd had it with me because I would push his buttons and I would poke and prod and I would argue about stupid stuff. And he just lost it and called me unbearable. Like, how many times did he say? Was it 17? Landry?
A lot.
It was bad. It was bad. So I think it's one of those things where I don't mind when people bring it up, but it was one of those things that honestly didn't bother me that much at the time. But it was like with reflection, it started to hurt me more and more, like as years went by. And I think maybe it was like kind of as I was talking about going through trying to figure out how to not be an angry person. It gave me enough perspective to kind of look at myself objectively and think about how I contributed to that. And so like, yeah, it doesn't bother me. Like I wouldn't mind the drops or anything. It's just like, yeah, it was painful. Like it was something that I thought was really funny at first. And then over time I started to be kind of, I ended up being embarrassed by it, you know? So it's like, I think the more I realized that there was some truth to it is when it stopped being as funny. Cause I'm like, all right, if I'd prefer not to be unbearable. So I think for the most part I am now, but yeah, play the drops all you want.
To be fair though, Mike Meltzer was a pretty funny guy to poke fun at times, man. Like I still remember when we booked a rabbi, so we would have a booked a rabbi and we tried to get Mike in touch with his Jewish side, you know. Right. And I think he was really upset. He really didn't like it. I don't think he liked it, man. But we had a great time. I was laughing hard because that guy was cool too.
Yeah, he was really cool. Did we have him in studio?
Yeah, he was in studio.
Yeah, and we asked him all kinds of questions. Yeah, and he was really cool about it. Like our Jewish listeners loved it.
We played the music. We had a great time.
It was classic, like whatever year it was, like 2015 or something. It was classic like 2015 because every Jewish person I heard from loved it. The offended people were non-Jewish people who were being offended on behalf of Jewish people. Yeah, well, we were genuinely. I think Mike liked it because we were except I think that part of it is, you know, with Mike, you always got to think about the parent dynamic.
Yeah.
Like if his mom didn't like it or something. So Mike might have liked it, but would be worried about that his mom might not like it. Yeah. That's a good idea by you, Ryan.
It was hilarious, man. I still think about that, but I feel like Mike hated me at times. I just think maybe that's just how he was, but I don't know. He's a hard guy to read, but I like him. He's a good guy.
Yeah, no. Mike just gets like, I think sometimes when he gets stressed out, it comes off that way because he's kind of up in his own world and you don't realize like that he's and he does, you know, he knows he's like kind of monotone about stuff and he might just he's thinking kind of robotically when interacting with people. So no. He loved you. He wasn't ever, I can't remember who the program director was at the time. Well, okay, I don't want to get into that. We really enjoyed having you as our interim producer for a while. And
I had a lot of fun, man. So I appreciate it. Now you mentioned like you dealing with anger and having to take mindfulness. Like, do you think that was early onset, or do you think that came from playing football defensive tackle in the NFL for 10 years? Because you go through a point where you have to be angry every Sunday to be good at your job. And now you have a new career where the anger can hurt you. It can get you suspended or anything like that. So like, is that attributed more so to the fact that you played football, or was it something more inherent?
I think most of it was just my upbringing, like just certain family members that were kind of wired that same way. But it helped. Like I learned early on, I can remember kind of flipping a switch when I was in high school and realizing like how to get myself worked up. But then like kind of learning how to balance it out. And this helps me out in radio. Like if I were doing radio in the Northeast, it would really help me out. I think in Houston, we're just not it shouldn't be that way. It doesn't need to be rants all the time. Like I thought it should be for like 7 years. But so I think that I learned how to use it as a tool. Like sometimes productively in football, but usually destructively in my personal life. But like, yeah, when it got into radio, I think I also like there was, I think Mike enjoyed it too because Mike's from the Northeast and that's the radio he grew up on is kind of guys with thick accents doing rants and stuff. So I almost, in times in radio, I felt like I was doing what I was supposed to be doing instead of really being myself, which might be that like I might get angry every now and then or flip out, but I could always bring up like, and I could still now if I wanted to, like I can get genuinely enraged like at the drop of a hat if I decide to, and get very irrationally angry. And it's just it's weird. It's like it's a skill in some respects, but only like these days, if I don't know if my house were invaded or if I like basically somebody was stealing my car, even if somebody's stealing your car, then it's non-productive.
Yeah.
What am I going to do? Go get shot over my car? Just go. The car will come back.
You got a John Wicket, man.
Yeah.
So, but no, I think you and Sean Pendergast have a good dynamic. He's a great mediator as well. So I think you guys play off each other very well on the morning show. So go ahead.
No, I think like with Figgy not playing the drops, I do think sometimes people. I think sometimes I don't know if I've like actually learned to manage things that well, or if just people don't prod me as much as they used to because they're just nervous too. So because I see that look in Sean's eyes every now and then, like, did I get too far? I'm like, oh crap, I did it. Intimidated somebody.
To be honest, I'm kind of like that with everybody because like I got a lot of Pendergast drops too, but sometimes when I feel like Landry and Lopez is kind of poking at Sean a lot.
Yeah,
I don't want to be the person to add on or feel like I'm, teasing them or something like that because I know sometimes people can get offended.
Yeah,
and I ain't trying to offend nobody. I'm just trying to, have fun with the show. But sometimes the drops could come off as like I'm, taking a shot at somebody.
Yeah, nah, I would say. Well, okay, go drop as much as you want on me. Just I don't know about Sean, but yeah.
So. In a crossover from NFL to media and radio hosts, like we all know most athletes don't like the media, and for good reason because most of them are like pencil neck geeks. Like you're not gonna like those kind of people when you're playing a sport in general. But in that crossover, of course, you have to analyze what you see. You have to talk negatively when somebody's playing poorly. Especially in a position you were excelling at, when you see somebody play it poorly, of course, you're going to rip that apart. Do you ever get like any feedback from current players? Like, man, you were one of us. Now you're like a Uncle Ruckus type or something. Now you're betraying us. You're betraying the brotherhood and going on the media and talking us down in public. Do you get that from current players?
I haven't gotten that. I'm trying to think of any incidents where I did. I think there have been some times where guys have acted coolly towards me. I think there might be a couple players where I used to have a little bit of a relationship with, and now I don't. And usually, I think what happens is a lot of times it's when guys hear you talking about one of their teammates or something. It's not even if they hear you talking about them, they'll tell you. But if they hear you like being what they think is unfair to a teammate, then it just kind of sets you in that category. So I think that I've tried to, over the years, especially after a couple of real bad Texans go-arounds, when it comes to local athletes, I try to really frame it more in terms of like what a guy needs to be doing instead of like harping on how a guy sucks or whatever. I'll just say like, man, he needs to do this better, or he needs to do that better. He can do this better. He just needs to figure out how to do it. And I think that's criticizing, but like with more of a potential positive outcome. And it feels like you almost like a good, I figure like if I can be like a good coach, who's tough on somebody. Now, obviously, you're criticizing them in front of thousands of people, so there's always going to be that dynamic. But I feel better. I feel better about myself at the end of the day if I handle it that way. Now, if you're an out of town athlete, I don't give a damn, and I just I'll say whatever the hell, because that's the fun of it. And that's why I like local radio and local media. It really is just more. It's just more fun. Like, you get to, I mean, when you're doing national stuff, you're gonna get crap every day, all day, and you can ignore it if you want. But it is like, you almost know and you feel you're constantly on this stage where you're pissing somebody off all the time. And I just don't like, some people are fine with that. Like, Nick Wright's awesome at it. Like, Nick Wright it is a genuine skill. Like, it's like, to be able to not care about like the fact that you are just pissing people off. I've just realized over time that I feel bad about myself at the end of the day if I do that. So I try to, if I'm being critical, I try to keep it somewhat constructive or productive.
Have you ever got a like a message or a text after a show or something about something you said, like, overall? Oh, you got the tiger out there?
Can you hear that or no?
I hear a little bit.
This is a good microphone. Geese just took off and freaked me out. I thought I was being attacked. Okay, sorry. What was the question? The geese interrupted you.
So have you ever got like a message or a text or email after a show or segment saying, "Oh man, Seth said this, and I don't agree with that," like somebody from higher up or media?
Yeah. In the middle of one of the Texans deals there, I made some comment where basically I was actually arguing. I was making an argument in favor of the Texans, saying that I can't remember what incident it was, but that I felt that in this incident, the Texans were being unfairly painted as being racist in how they handled something. And so that's what I said. And then like a few minutes later, some player came available on the waivers, so it was like breaking news that some player became available. And I said, I don't know. Yeah, I guess the Texans will pick him up. I guess they'll have to check their racial policy first. So, and I remember now that with the person what I'd been reacting to a few minutes prior was somebody basically saying that the Texans wouldn't have a black quarterback or something like that. And so I was like saying they don't have a racial policy with players. So what I said a few minutes later was, I guess the Texans will just have to check their racial policy. I get a call about a half hour after the show was over, asking me to call back because Bob McNair wanted to talk to me.
Oh, wow.
And like, this is the only time anybody really had ever said anything to me about the Texans, like saying anything positive. And this is back when I used to really go into them and like really like really almost like unfairly so. But my God, they were 2-14. So I call back, and by this point, it's Bob McNair is on his way to a cancer treatment, and he's calling deeply concerned because he needs to explain to me that they don't have any kind of a racial policy, and that they would never do. And I'm trying to explain to him, yes, sir, I know that was completely sarcastic. I was actually defending you in this particular incident. I can't remember which one it was.
Did you listen to the last segment, Bob?
Yeah, no, but that's what happens is somebody tells somebody.
Yeah.
Like somebody's listening, and then they tell somebody, and then that person tells Bob McNair. And I'm like, yeah, if I were out there claiming that the Texans had a racial policy against black players, that would be kind of a big deal. And there was just some kind of gap where I couldn't explain to him that's not what I was doing. So I just that was it for pretty much me and Bob McNair after that. I think he had it in his head that I was like besmirching the name of the organization or something. So there's some, like, honestly, there's some asshole out there. There's like some stupid asshole who told Bob McNair that, like, misinformed Bob McNair about that, as he was on his way to a cancer treatment. And but that's the stuff you deal with. So.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was going to bring up next too, because you're in a position where, okay, you host the morning show, you're an ex-Texans player, so you're kind of like an ambassador for them as well. And you also do the the pregame show for the Houston Texans radio. So in a way, you're in a promotion type of role for the team, and also a analysis and breakdown in a kind of neutral sense. So is that ever kind of awkward where because the team has been, we all know the team has been these past few seasons and historically even. So do you ever think it's kind of awkward where you have to objectively talk about what you see, but also I'm kind of, I kind of represent the team and I work for the team and all that. Is that ever kind of awkward for you, or have you gone past that?
It isn't, and honestly, because the Texans have always been super cool about it. Like there was time, I mean, I was off the pregame show for a couple of years. So it was, I mean, I didn't, and it's not like I changed anything. I think it was when they started getting a lot of heat for various things that they didn't want me being another person. And that's the one where you work directly for the team when you're doing the pregame show, basically. And, but they tried, and Jamie Ruth's the team president was, I think, kind of key to that. Mm-hmm. He always said from the very beginning, like, look, if people are talking, then that's good. We want them talking about us all the time. Talk about us. If it's negative, if it's positive, it's always good. And like, I very rarely, the only time I ever got actual pushback, like in the form of somebody saying something to me, was that time with Bob McNair, which, as he understood it, I was saying that the Texans had a racial policy. So I would understand if somebody were saying that should be addressed. Beyond that, though, I think they've let 6'10", at least when I've been involved, do what we're going to do. Now, I don't know how much. I think a lot of times program directors might be behind the scenes smoothing things over with various personalities. And it's so I don't know like how much of that, like the program director works with the team when you're the flagship and they want to try to serve you the right. They want to, have a good working relationship. But I've always been pretty lucky. I think that, I mean, I know that certain members of the McNair family did not like Mad Radio at all. And I don't know how they feel about it. I think they all love Sean Pendergast, but I don't, like, to this day, I don't really know how the McNairs feel about me. And I'm cool with it. Like I said, like, Brian, you're a person worth having a conversation with, and yet you and I never had a conversation. I don't spend my days like chatting on the phone with people. Like I like to read, I like to exercise, I like to prepare for my show. And I lead I don't need to be a social butterfly with like either the billionaires or anybody else. So that part never really bothers me. Like if people just don't like the way I'm doing my job, then so be it. But I'm not going to stress about it too much.
No, I feel you, man. And it's funny because even at that time when, like you said, the McNairs were not happy with Mad Radio, there were still a lot of listeners who said, oh, you guys are going too soft on the Texans. You guys are just funded by the Texans. Y'all just are their PR people, basically. And like, y'all even listen to the show. Y'all are pretty harsh.
Yeah,
on everything.
Yeah, I know. Like really, like unfairly so sometimes. We used to be like really just kind of.
Brock Osweiler got a lot of him in particular.
Yeah.
I think he got the brunt of it.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, some of that sometimes is just like that's what the competition is filling their head with. So that's what they repeat. But then, you know what? And then other teams go through a rough stretch and people realize like, oh, huh. That's flagship stations are okay. I got you. So yeah, I don't like that. That's when I was listening in on you guys before the show started. You guys were talking about people not taking social media heat or criticism well. I mean, that's something that you definitely learn how to handle somewhat, obviously, when you're in the public eye. But like I've learned there's some things that like on any given day, somebody can push your buttons and get you just right, especially if you're sleep deprived. But like there's some things that's weird. The things that bother me anymore almost never have anything to do with a direct insult. Like if somebody says they hate me or they think that I'm the worst radio person ever or that I'm ugly or anything like that, it like genuinely, it's rare that actually affects me. It's when somebody says something illogical, like if they make an argument that just doesn't make sense, and then God forbid they act like it's a mic drop moment for them. That's when I still get angry. But like as far as the insults, you just realize, all right, when I get agitated these days, it's just typically when somebody's not listening to my argument.
Yeah, that's the part that bothers me. When I get pissed off, I get pissed off when people try to say I said something that I didn't say.
Yeah,
Like,
that's a tough one.
Yeah, one day somebody hit me up on Twitter like, that was a bad take about blah, 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 blah. I'm like, I never said that.
Yeah.
Like, go back and listen. I never said, I barely say anything on the damn show. Like, I never said that.
Sometimes it's like silence. They assume silence is like agreement though too, and or that like somebody will say something, it's time to go to break, you don't say anything back, and then it becomes, well, you get this too, Figgy, right? People assume that like everybody on the show or the station feels the exact same way.
Yes.
So like that, like everybody, well, this is what you guys were saying. Like I'm not even aware of this topic. Yeah.
It was really rough during the 2020 year. And you had all the stuff, the protests and, the NBA, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And me, mind you, I'm just a producer. I'm not a host.
Yeah.
A lot of people, I let Landry and Lopez do their thing, and I didn't really want to weigh in on it anyway. But
yeah,
a lot of people was hitting me up like, oh, why they ain't let you speak? And
really?
Said something, and I'm just like, man, like, look, I could speak if I want to.
Yeah,
I'm not trying to speak on that, to be honest. But
being guilted into trying to be a voice.
Then some people say, man, they got a black producer on the show and he ain't say nothing. And I'm just like, man, like, I ain't getting the sports talk radio for this.
Yeah, I know. That's like, that's, man, we haven't been through that in a while, because there was, for a couple of years there, it was, and I think it's funny. I feel like the real world filtered into sports media in a big, big way, through that entire 18-month period or so. And it's, I don't know, I think people need separation from their entertainment to the real world stuff to everything else, but it's an individual thing. And that's where it got tough, is that I think there are some people, because I hear it from all skin colors and ethnicities and everything on both sides, of people saying you guys need to be talking about this, versus same thing, all races, ethnicities saying look, I don't care, man, I just want to hear about my sports. So you're genuinely screwed no matter what you do. Then you're going to be pissing people off that want you to be more socially minded or civically minded, and then you're going to be pissing the other ones off too. So yeah, don't worry, Figgy, I've never I've never heard you. I don't know.
Have a really hot, spicy take.
Yeah, I got.
Yeah, I'm super neutral, man. I ain't trying to I want everybody to like me. So I ain't trying to go out there and throw this hot take, or I ain't trying to shake the table or nothing like that. I ain't Stephen A. Smith. So I just like to chill, sit back. I would throw, the only time I like to weigh in is when they discuss something and they ain't bring up the obvious, and I like to add on something to it. But I'm not trying to get into all that, man.
2016 was when it started being because obviously okay, regardless, I don't care, whatever you feel about Trump, it got real divisive, things have always been divisive, but it got super divisive. And when it filtered over into sports, where that was when all of a sudden you'd be getting accused from people on both sides of your argument being because you're either a lib or you're a right winger or whatever it was. It was that was unbearable, because again, it goes back to the illogical part of it. People would assume that your purely sports opinion was different than theirs based on your political persuasion, which they didn't actually know what it was. They didn't even know your political persuasion, but they assumed you must be either liberal or conservative because you disagree with me on this. That was maddening. That was really rough.
Yeah, that was a tough era. The Kaepernick was really tough too. That whole era, we had to talk about, that was tough in sports radio. But I will say that I think people think that producers on shows aren't allowed to talk. And let's clear the air. That's not the case at Sports Radio 610. Like, I know you were accused. I heard one morning somebody accused you guys of not allowing Ben Gary not to talk.
Yeah.
I know Ben. I work with Ben every Sunday.
Yeah.
Ben doesn't want to talk like that.
No,
man.
no, no.
Like-
When and as soon as like Sean read that text, I think Ben was probably like, "Oh, great, they're gonna talk to me."
Yeah, Ben doesn't want to talk. Figgy will chime in. I ran my mouth a lot on the Paul Gallant show because I like to run my mouth, man.
Yeah,
But like, there's no law that states or rule that producers can't talk on the show. It's usually by choice. And there's a lot going on in the back as well. We don't have time to chat, to pay attention and chat when we're answering phone calls, getting stuff ready, pulling audio. We only have time to be engaged in the discussion. So
yeah,
a lot
you
going
guys
on
are
in the
like,
background.
And
Yeah,
people
you're-
don't realize I'm doing like 20 different things at once. I'm over here uploading the podcast. I might be tweeting out something. I might be, checking emails. People emailing me saying, "Can you send this air check? Can you do that?" I'm doing all type of stuff, and still Landry and them. Hey, Figgy, what you think about that?
well, that's you know what? Yeah, and that's the craziest thing is that you guys have to write titles for the podcasts, which is hard. Like writing a title. Well,
Yes.
Ryan, you've got the
Yes.
newspaper background. Like I used to, when I first learned that there was such a thing as a headline writer. Like, you hear that and you think it's the dumbest thing in the world. And then you try to title a few things and you realize like what an art there is to it.
Yes.
Especially if you want to be ethical about it, which seems to be like a bygone concern. But like, it's freaking hard to extract the most titillating thing, but to accurately represent it and just, So that's a bit, I feel like that's the kind of thing that the suits tell you guys to do without really thinking at all about like how difficult it is. Just because it's 4 words doesn't mean it can't take like 10 minutes to figure it out.
Yeah, and so what I do with the podcast titles, I try to I treat it like a podcast, like a normal podcast, and I try to get something that was funny from that hour.
Yeah,
and like so, if this was going on the podcast, I'd be like, our buddy Seth Payne joins.
Yeah.
I would try to make it a little funny, more like a regular podcast type of title instead of the typical. Former NFL player Seth Payne joined the show. I tried to make it a little funny and chat it out a little bit.
Yeah, just something that piques the interest. One of your commenters says that it's not a problem to write headlines via Chat GPT. I got to tell you, everything I've done with Chat GPT has been like, sometimes it'll come out being like really, really smooth writing, but it doesn't sound anything like that I would enjoy reading or that I feel like that I had written. I'm sure I know you can teach it to write in your style and everything, but I've messed with it for about a month now, and I can't get it to be anything that I feel good about. Like actually, like I almost feel like I've put way more work into it than just writing something.
Yeah, I think it's good for like resumes and stuff like that. But outside of that, like writing a headline, it's like don't nobody write no headline like this about the show.
Yeah.
So it'd be like, oh yeah, sports talk radio show in Houston had a lot of discussions throughout the day. And ain't nobody writing it like that. They put a little too much sauce on it.
Do you ever find yourself? More and more I find myself reading. I'll Google something because I want to learn about porcupines or something. And I'll get like 2 paragraphs into it, and I'm like, son of a bitch, this is AI. Because it's like, it's giving me the relevant information, but it's just not quite right. And you can tell there's something shoehorned in there, and it's maybe Chat GPT 8 or something. I'll be okay with it, but it's just still too fake.
I think it's gonna get better for sure, man. I don't know if you heard some of the AI music that been out. So like it's a lot of Drake songs that's AI Drake songs.
But I think it's still like they're AI Drake songs, but I feel like the people that produced them still spent like, however many hours, like how many times did you fail at finding the one that was good before you found it? Which, I mean, I guess that's still, but they still produced something that they never could have produced before. Now we're all fucked.
Yeah, no, I think it'll get way, way more simple in the future and more smooth. But I mean, if you want to apologize for waving a gun for the second time in an Instagram video, I think it's good for that because apparently that they found that was a Chat GPT apology statement. So I don't know, man.
Is that, yeah, if you write in like the 6 elements to a good apology, because we do that on our show. Whenever there's an apology, we've got the 6 elements to a good apology, and you go through, and rarely does anybody get even like 3 of them before they break into like sorry, not sorry. But yeah, it's fun to fool around with.
Yeah,
Actually, we did the other day on air. Somebody asked, we compared like 2 movies that were way opposite. Oh, Jim Cotta and Papillon.
What is your obsession with Jim Cotta? Because you're the only person I know who talks about that movie. I know what movie you're talking about.
Yeah.
You're the only one I know who references Jim Cotta fairly frequently.
Okay, so because it's such a stupid movie, but so for those of you who don't know, Jim Cotta was a story about champion U.S. gymnast who went over to somewhere in Asia to play something that they called the game, and it's basically a battle to the death race, but it was just like the cheesiest of Hollywood kung fu / martial arts movies of the 80s. And when I was growing up, I would go to visit my dad, and my dad was for a while an independent movie producer, and he had like this huge library of VHS tapes that he had dubbed all of them. And like, so it was like this huge wall of movies that for like 3 months we had, and it was awesome because you could go and I'd go to my dad's house and I wouldn't see my dad the whole weekend, but we'd watch movies the whole time. But then something happened, like he had to take them and move them all to another state, probably because he was fleeing authorities. And like there were like 3 movies left, and one of them was Jim Cotta. So we spent like my brother, my stepbrother, and I were watching Jim Cotta for like an entire weekend. And my brother and my stepbrother older than me, and they just beat the shit out of me the whole weekend. Doing the trying all the moves out and everything. So yeah, I've just had a weird fixation on that movie ever since.
The only reason I know what that movie is because I had a Sega Genesis when I was a kid, and they had this fighting game called Streets of Rage.
Yeah.
And the cover of that game was the exact same cover from Jim Cotta. They just like repainted it.
Really?
So, and people found that out, and it was on the internet. I was like, what is Jim Cotta? And then I heard you talking about it. You're the only person I know who's ever talked about that movie.
I think, what was his name? Was it Kirk Thomas or something? I should
something like that. But
yeah, so yeah, Kirk Thomas. Of course, it was Kirk Thomas. The other one. Okay, so speaking of cheesy kind of martial artsy movies from the 80s, the one that still bothers me to this day was Remo Williams' The Adventure Begins, because it's implied that there's going to be a series, and I went and I watched it in the series, watched it in the movie, and I like kept waiting for Remo Williams' The Next Adventure or something to come out, and it never came out.
Yeah, so we don't want to hold you too long, man. Just gonna get some.
I got more time. Yeah,
I don't want to hold you too long, man. I know you got things to do and people to see. But just a few more questions, I guess more sports-related things. After we saw the Rockets pick number 4 in this upcoming the lottery, and the Texans are making some moves, looks positive. They got their quarterback, got a new head coach. Which of those 2 teams do you see going back to the playoffs first? The Rockets or the Texans?
I think the Texans. Not necessarily because of anything with the roster or anything in particular right this moment, but just because in the NFL, if you have a good defense, you can get a credible record. And the AFC South, I don't think the AFC South is going to be actually strong anytime soon. So, but they also have a rookie quarterback. I'm going to say the Texans because the Rockets still have to figure out exactly what Şengün is and find some element of culture and veteran leadership to add to the mix. So they might have, like, I would give the Rockets as a higher ceiling right now, but I could see the Texans making the playoffs within the next couple of years just with a little bit more talent added and D'Amico being a really good coach. Udoka's the big X factor there. I think Udoka is going to be really good.
Real quick, I don't want to jump off of sports, but I just thought about this. So I want to say it was today y'all played it on on your show. McClain pretty much calling you out for not being I guess from Texas.
Not a native Texan, yeah.
Yeah. Because I felt like you should have been way more offended than you was originally. Because I'm like, man, this guy, he was an original Texan. He actually played here when the team was first brought here. And you calling this guy for not being born here?
He was okay. So we were calling him out because he had congratulated Popovich and the Spurs for getting Wembanyama for the most part. So like we were asking him like, what are you talking about? You can't. And McLean has always said that he's just if Houston can't have him, he's happy for somebody to stay in Texas. And we pushed it back against that. And that's another one. It didn't bother me. I didn't get offended by him saying that I'm not a native born Texan. I got offended by the absolute just like that it's not logical because most Texans, most sports fans don't feel that way. Like most Houstonians don't feel like, oh, awesome. If the Rockets can't have him, let's give him to somebody else in the conference who's in the state of Texas. Like that doesn't make any sense. It's not like a spelling bee. Where, okay, hey, if the Harris County girl doesn't win the spelling bee, then I hope Montgomery County gets it. Or it's pro sports. So, but yeah, him dismissing me by saying I wouldn't understand because I'm not a native born Texan, is misrepresenting how a lot of actual natural born Texans feel. And B, I did feel it was a little bit like if I were to tell him, if I were in an argument with John and I were to be like, well, you just don't know because you didn't play the game, you know? Like, all right, well, that's a cop out. You're not actually winning anything there. You're bringing up a trump card that just ends the argument because there's nothing which I've always felt, by the way, to go off on another tangent. Like, I tell this to young guys, like athletes when they get into media or want to get into media. Like, yes, it's true that you play the game and you have experiences that other people don't have. You're being paid to use words to explain how those experiences are relevant. It's not like some trump card that says, well, I played, so I win. Like you gotta use those experiences to fuel your arguments, but that's not the argument.
Yeah, and especially when it comes to sports, but kind of everything. I don't think there is the Texan camaraderie here at all. At least in regards to the major cities.
Yeah,
you know, like Houston doesn't like Dallas. Dallas doesn't like Austin. Like we don't like each other really. Like Texas is too big for us to all get along like that here and be happy for anybody who gets success in Texas. Man.
Yeah,
so
that's how it is in every state. Because like me growing up in Cleveland, I don't give a damn about the Cincinnati Bengals.
Cincinnati's barely in Ohio.
Yes,
it's like people don't realize that. It's like Cincinnati is like Kentucky. It's like hillbilly stuff.
It's really Kentucky. They got Southern accents and everything.
It's weird.
It's like, man, we not like I ain't rocking with no Cincinnati. Even when they was in the Super Bowl, like I like Joe Burrow, but I don't care about no Cincinnati. Like I hope they lose every game.
Oh yeah, especially you're in the same division. Yeah.
So why would I be rooting for Cincinnati?
I'm with you, man.
I was actually going to bring that up. I'm glad Figgy brought that up though, because I was always wondering. I know you came from a small town in New York, and you were drafted to Jacksonville, then went to Houston. So, what was the biggest shock for you coming down south, like cultural wise, besides all the minorities you see? So.
Well,
we got. I'm just playing.
No, I know. No, I was thinking of a comeback, but like, no, I don't need to go there right now. No, okay. So biggest differences. It was in going to Jacksonville. You know, like Jacksonville's it's a Florida city, but like it's more like it's a southern city. You know, like when you're in Jacksonville, when you get away from the beaches, it feels like you're in the South. Like it's South Georgia, North Florida. It's different than going to Orlando or elsewhere. Okay, so a couple of the biggest differences were one, just like the prevalence and what's the word? I guess the omnipresence of religion in the South, the Southeast especially, and just how openly religious people are, and the fact that if you're not religious, it's kind of a big deal. Like that was kind of a shock to me because I came from a college where it was the exact opposite, you know, like the people that were very devout and religious were in the minority generally in that environment, and or at least they were vocally religious. So that was a shock. I think just the pace of life was way different, and it's not like where I'm from. It's not like in the city or anything at all. but it's definitely a less relaxed pace of life. So that part of it was really cool, but I feel like it took me about like 15 years to get down to speed. And Houston was nice because it's a little bit of a compromise. Houston, it feels more like, okay, there's a little bit more zip and pep in Houston than there is in the Southeast. Actually, a lot more. And then, I mean, like, honestly, I'll say one of the weirdest things, and this is because there's racism everywhere, obviously. And like, I got like, we had exchanges, especially some of the football players at Cornell have it tough because or they used to back then. It's just a different environment. Like up in the middle of nowhere in this Ivy League school, where like for black football players, it's just like, it's just a different dynamic than anywhere else I've ever been. So like, but it's not like outward racism or anything, but it's just, I think a lot of those guys just felt uncomfortable at that time back then on that campus. They just felt different. And so you would see it manifest itself in more subtle ways. You know, it wasn't like you heard racial slurs places like where I grew up. I mean, like, yes, there are like racial slurs from like the genuine like guys that were assholes and you knew like, okay, that guy's an asshole. But then I got down south and it was like, there are situations I'd be in where just like random business settings and everything and just start flying with the N-words and and it was really, really weird for me. Like it was really strange. And the biggest one was, I was one night, I had a couple friends from Penn State who came down. Two of my friends from Penn State, and they brought one of their friends. So a kid I knew from school that went to Penn State, they brought their friend who was black. My two friends from high school were white. They brought their friend who was black to Jacksonville for a couple nights. And they were staying with me. So after a game, we're at a bar. We run into a girl I knew that I've kind of been flirting with, this really hot blonde girl. And we decided to like, our two groups got together. So there were like 5 or 6 of us guys and 5 or 6 of her friends. And we decided we were going to go to another bar and we had 2 cars between us. So we were all like, okay, why don't you guys go here and I'll go here. And I told the girl that I kind of liked, I was like, okay, you can go with those guys. They'll drive you. I'll see you in a few minutes. And so we drove to this other bar, park, get out, and she comes up to me, and she had sat next to my friends. She had been sitting with my 2 friends and their friend, the black kid, and she like makes a beeline to me, and she says, "I can't believe you made me sit next to that." Like,
wow,
yeah. So it was like, and it was so far out of the realm of anything I'd expected to hear that I just kind of like, I still wish I had come up with something better to say, but I was just kind of like, all right, well, I mean, we're just gonna not hang out, like we're gonna go elsewhere, you know. And it was like the first really shocking moment, and that could happen in any of the 50 states. It happened more frequently in Jacksonville, and I had to like, it was that part of it was strange. So that was the biggest shock for me.
Yeah, next I was going to ask you what made you decide to stay and work in Houston, but I guess I kind of answered that question.
No, it was different though too. Like it depended on where you went, you know, because there was like there's some parts that it was like Jacksonville's a really big city, and you know, you get in some neighborhoods and towards the beaches and everything, it feels like a modern U.S. city, and there's other places and pockets where it feels like, man, like, you know, they probably have realtors that are, you know, show houses to the right kind of people and all that. But then I also like, and sometimes I hate telling that story just because I don't want to make it seem like that doesn't happen everywhere. Yeah. It was just the openness of it, and like the cavalier, just casual, like people are just going to say it. Like, of course you agree with me. And like, why, like, it doesn't even occur to them that you might get offended by it. So I just kind of, yeah, it was different. It was different.
I feel like a lot of people up north too, like I'm one of them, like just going down south, you automatically think it's a whole bunch of racist people just walking around and all this other stuff. But it wasn't until I moved down here, I'm like, it's not. I mean, I haven't ran across anything like that before. And
No.
my family was actually nervous.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I was moving to Texas. It wasn't even just like Houston. You moving to Texas and they got open carry. All type of, Trump supporters and all this other stuff. And
I
when
think,
I got out here, I'm just like, it's not that bad. And actually, the Trump supporters are actually cool. So,
well, that's probably I have conversations with my kid about that all the time. Is like, you gotta like, there's the people you see on the internet and how they behave and act, and honestly, there's like everybody, like almost everybody out there, like whatever bigotry or anything they have, a lot of it is just a result of their upbringing and the environment they've been in. And they're like, there's a decent person in there. It's just they don't necessarily know any better, and not to excuse anything, but like getting to know people makes you a little bit more understanding or accepting of everybody. And I don't know, perspective matters a lot.
Yeah, no, it does. Don't want to hold you too long, man. But I had 3 more random questions I want to ask you, so we'll just speed through them. Now I know you're a savant and a learned man. I think you're very inquisitive too. I always have fun listening to the show, and you go down rabbit holes where you're trying to find out more information about something new that you just heard of.
Yeah.
So I want to know, is your third eye really open, man? I want to know how you feel about the moon landing. Was it real or not?
Oh, no. Oh, I wish you hadn't framed the question that way.
Okay, was
a brilliant way to frame it.
What are your thoughts on the moon?
I generally think I could totally see the motivation for doing it, given the Cold War and what it was. I generally feel with things like that conspiracies can only be so large before there is actually like convincing, like actual either testimony or what have you from other people. I honestly haven't investigated enough to address whichever like most of the most convincing conspiracy theories. So yes, I believe the moon landing was real.
Okay.
Is that okay?
What about Bigfoot? No Bigfoot either?
No, I don't believe in Bigfoot.
Okay.
I feel like Bigfoot, same thing. Bigfoot's too large a mammal. Okay, so here's the thing about large mammals. There's only like, it's hard for large mammals to exist, except like there's not that many large mammals actually on Earth. If you think about like beasts of burden, or animals that are on the savannah, some that used to exist in North America, or woolly mammoths that used to exist. Like, I think it's especially hard for them to hide when they do exist in areas that aren't like dense jungle. So I feel like the Bigfoot we would have found by now.
Well, unless it was a trans-dimensional being, which is another conspiracy as well. You see, you can travel through dimensions, so it might not be on its physical plane right now, but it still exists in space.
Oh,
you get it?
Okay, yeah. No idea.
I go deep on these conspiracies when I get bored, man. But I don't believe most of them,
because I almost don't think it's a conspiracy. If you get into trans-dimensional stuff, I mean, there are like when you get into the theories of multiverses and everything like that, or that like with every single millisecond, every A/B decision actually happens and splits off into its own. Those are those things that you can understand theoretically, and yet, like, is there any possibility or avenue that I would ever actually be able to perceive it consciously? Because I've only, like, this is another thing I haven't learned until my 40s, is like really understanding the concept of subjective reality and like how little of the actual world we really see. A, because of our senses that limit us, or B, because of preconceptions that we've got drilled into us. So I'm open to understanding that there's things there that I just simply can't see, either because of biology or training. But I just I don't know where that leaves me. And like, actually, I know that there's a possibility that it exists, but how do I break that wall and like start believing in a specific thing over there in the other dimension or what have you?
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's how I feel when I hear Neil deGrasse Tyson talk about black holes and stuff. I'm like, I can't even perceive this stuff, man. Unless I can somehow see it visually, I can't even understand how this is possible. But
Right. Well, even like when people start talking about space-time, like I kind of get it and I can do some physics and stuff, but I don't does anybody actually grasp it?
I don't
Like I
think
don't
so. I think they're faking the funk.
that's what I'd like to believe. Like, I don't know because the really smart physicists will tell you like that you can't really perceive it. Like you can start to understand the concept and everything, but I don't think you can actually visualize it or perceive it without like a boatload of acid.
Yeah, no. And then when they talk about things things that react differently if you see it rather than when you don't see it, that's where I start to lose my mind, man. I'm like, I can't even understand things like that. Something acts differently if you see it or not.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
I know. Yeah, that actually affects the actual. Yeah, and you're okay. Here's one for you that like is this actually is still rooted in the human world, but it's a lot of stuff that blows your mind, but is you can comprehend it. But this book I'm reading right now is called Thinking Fast and Slow, but it's about this psychologist who won a Nobel Prize for basically showing economists that like, hey, you guys are treating human beings like they always make rational economic decisions, and it couldn't be further from the truth. Like people act really irrationally and make decisions that they think are rational, but they're too heavily weighting, fear of failure and all these things. That's really interesting because you can examine yourself and realize like, oh, okay, I'm actually pretty irrational in this one aspect, and I'm completely blind to it. But if you learn about the statistics and everything, like then at least you can use that. I don't know how to use space-time.
Yeah, it's tough to even when you see diagrams of it. I don't get it. It's hard. I can't.
Yeah, when they try to do it, they do that thing where they draw the cube, but then show. But what if you drew another thing that actually isn't like it looks here?
I don't get it, man. Next quick question, man. If the writer strike keeps going, how are the NFL games going to be played this year?
Oh,
now to be serious though,
yeah.
in your experience, like, was there ever a moment where you considered like maybe something was going on with these refs? Maybe something about this game is weird. Something seems predetermined here. Do you ever get that?
I felt like sometimes with certain quarterbacks, it felt like I mean. Sometimes that's just like the human bias of the officials, I think, giving Peyton Manning a friendly whistle or something. But it felt like it. Like it felt like, all right, these guys, like the league knows these guys are their ticket. And it felt like sometimes it felt like, okay, wait a second. Why is that call happening in the fourth quarter? That's when I felt like, man, what the hell's going on here? But like, yeah, my golden rule is like, all right, without evidence, I'm not going to live my life that way. I can't live my life thinking about the forces that are controlling me without me knowing it unless I'm confronted with it face to face.
No, I get you, man.
What do you think? What do you like as far as the actual, like that would be one though too, kind of like fixing an NBA game or something. Mm-hmm. It can only be one or two people at most in on it. So it would have to be like the commissioner and one of the officials themselves, and not even the quarterbacks involved with it, because otherwise it comes out it comes out in a book.
But I mean, you'd be surprised if people's livelihoods were at stake how long they can keep a secret.
That's true.
Look at Tim. Like I got deep in that Tim Donaghy thing, man. And I just refuse to believe like he was the only referee doing this. Especially when you consider like he wasn't he was one of the best referees. The league said he was one of the best referees in the game before he got caught. And now suddenly we're supposed to believe like, he was alone. He was the only guy who did this. Nobody else, even his buddy Scott Foster, was never involved in this. It's like, okay, man, I don't know. And like nobody else was involved, really.
And not to mention all the money you can make by, all of these calls and the way games can switch over and turn over, gambling stuff. So
the NBA especially, because there's just so many. I mean, just a couple possessions here and there. It changes everything over time. Yeah. All right. Now you got. Damn it, Rockett. Now I'm going to be thinking about.
Just ask some questions, man. Just ask
I know.
Some questions.
No, I know. The problem is these damn YouTube videos are so slick.
Yeah.
Like Like, and they present stuff, and because I do the same thing, man. I'll listen to various political arguments on various outlets just to kind of get a feel for what people are saying. And there's times where I'm like, that can't be true, right? But man, he sounds like it's really true. And then you look it up and you're like, oh, it's totally not true. My God, he's passing it off like it's completely 100% proven and true. And it's not true at all. So, and that's just a dude talking. So I don't know about, I feel like you watch one of those videos and then you got to do 4 hours of research to fact check everything. And you go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah. And my last question for you, man, is something I'm curious about, because we do see a lot of talk about the players back then versus the players now athletically. You know, of course, you have the plumbers and electricians versus now an NBA and all that. So I was kind of wondering how you guys think about it. So you last played in 2007, which was a while back, but not that long ago. But let's say you were in your physical prime right now and in the NFL. Do you think your career would be longer, shorter, or about the same?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think I would probably, I'd have a tougher time making it because I was mostly a run stuffer, and they're just not as interested in those anymore. Although, like DJ Reader does a good. DJ Reader is actually like, if like statistically and everything, DJ and I are kind of similar in that I could get push up the pocket without actually being a really good pass rusher, and I could stop the run. DJ's a better version of myself, but DJ's also like very well paid. So I think I would make it. I think I could
on that offensive line too, man.
What's that?
I said he actually be creating problems for people offensive line too, man.
Yeah.
Like, it might not show up in the stats, but the announcer always said, "Man, DJ Reader in the mix again."
Yeah, he's in the middle. He affects things. So yeah. I think I'd probably be about the same. Hard to say though. I might not have. You know what? I might not have been a starter. I might have had to be a backup or something. Like Ted Johnson and I are kind of in the same boat. We were from. We played like in a 3-4 back when middle linebackers looked like defensive ends and defensive tackles looked kind of like offensive linemen. Everybody's gotten a little bit sleeker, and some of these defensive tackles now are just like Quinnen Williams, and these guys are they're just freaks of nature. So I probably wouldn't have started as many games. I would have been a backup. Damn it, Rockett.
I didn't mean to bring your self-confidence down, man.
I feel bad about the moon landing and myself.
And we got to wrap. I guess we'll do this for the Texans fans out there. One last prediction. What is your win prediction for the Texans this year?
Right now, I'm trying to figure out between 6 and 7. I honestly think the defense is going to be much improved, partly because of D'Amico, partly because of Jimmy Ward and a couple of the guys that they added. And I think that, I think Will Anderson will do well as a rookie. I don't need him to get like 15 sacks. So I think the defense will actually be a lot better. And then I think just having an actual system on offense, and I think they'll have a more credible running game on offense. I think it's going to be a more solid and steady football team than people want to give it credit for. So I'm probably going to settle in on 7, and I'll be like considered a homer for that, which is fine because usually I'm on the downside of the over under, but I think I'm feeling that way. I gotta give myself some time to watch it through training camp.
Troy on Facebook asked, in 3 years, which franchise more playoff wins? I think clearly the Astros, but maybe take them out of it. But what do you think about that?
Oh, and then he asked whether Chicago or Houston.
Oh, okay, Chicago or Houston.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that's a good question. I think Houston's got more. Houston's got more up and coming young talent, and I'll say, and I think Fields still has to prove that he's like an actual NFL quarterback. Like they turned that into a very Justin Fields running friendly type of offense. I think CJ's way more ready coming into his rookie year to be an NFL quarterback. Like CJ's, I mean, God, if you guys watched him throw like in the rookie mini camp, I mean, because it's always, it's one thing seeing it at the combine or seeing it at Ohio State. when I saw him in the Texans uniform and just that really just beautiful, consistent delivery and release and everything, it's just so nice. Like he's really, I think he's going to latch on to this offense really well. So I'm feeling better and better about him.
Yeah, that's the same thing I said. I know it's rookie mini camp and it's early, but even watching now, I'm like, dang, because I remember the past couple years we were like, oh, that ball ain't look good coming out of his hand.
Yeah.
Or, oh, that ball oversell. Or this everything was perfect, man. It was like perfect accuracy.
And it's just smooth and easy, you know?
Yeah.
And I think the one thing that sticks out about him that which includes that throwing motion is he's got a kind of a meticulous nature. I think when it comes to really hammering the details, I think he's very much into that. And that's where sometimes I think that's why some coaches could look at his personality and see it as a negative. I think a lot of other coaches looked at it and thought that like this dude is like super serious about his craft. And I think he really I think he takes it very seriously. And which sometimes can be a detriment, you know, if you take it too seriously and you can't handle that stress or pressure, but he's played at Ohio State. There's enough pressure and stress there.
That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah. Yeah. So like with this offense, you know, going back to what I learned just from talking to Gary Kubiak about it and what he would stress in his team meetings, it's so much attention to detail. It's so much of like the finer points that sell the deception on the play action and everything that I really think CJ is going to latch onto that. And these guys have all been to the same throwing camps. They've all been to the same Elite 11 and all that. And, you know, like they don't throw as well as CJ. And it's not because of some natural ability or anything mechanically. Like they can all have mechanics like CJ. Maybe his arm wouldn't be as talented, but like you don't get mechanics like that without working your ass off at it. So like that part, I don't think he gets enough credit. And I know I didn't early on for like recognizing how much work it takes to be that pure looking of a passer.
Yeah, very well said, man. And the 6 and 7 wins will be much. Do you think you'd have a? Do you think it's easier to do the post game when? I guess that's a dumb question. Is it easier when they're better? But
yeah,
is it like I don't know.
Yeah, I don't do the post game. I wouldn't do well with the post game.
That's right.
Yeah,
oh yeah. So you're always that's right. You're always hopeful in the pregame. So
yeah, I know. I talk myself into it every week. Every damn week, I talk myself into it. It's the pregame's fun because it's like you can kind of cruise through a season and sometimes not actually be as schooled on the upcoming game as you should be.
Yeah.
It's like doing the pregame. You really gotta I'll read the opposing team's paper, you know, and I look for different, you know, I watch the games obviously, but I do I've got a checklist of stuff that I feel like I'm ready for this game. Where if I'm not doing pregame for something, I'm reading articles as I'm watching another game or something. So I like that part of it.
I feel you. All right, so like we said, I don't want to hold you too long, man. But we're very, very, very good discussion. I'm glad we finally made this happen, man. Like I said, I've always wanted to sit down and talk to you, so I'm glad we finally made it happen.
Oh yeah, one more thing, man. I forgot to ask you this, and I told you we was gonna talk about it whenever we see each other. What's up with y'all wearing the dirty Air Force Ones, man? What's up with white folks wearing the dirty Air Force Ones?
Yeah, that's what. Okay, so I thought about it because I told you I've got a theory, and then I realized, okay, I don't know if my theory extends beyond just, I don't know, white people just being sloppier about stuff. Like when it comes to that, there's got to be something about, I don't know, because it crosses economic classes with white people too. Like it's almost always acceptable at any level of like lower class, middle class, upper class white people to wear dirty sneakers. So I don't know what that comes from. My first thought was like, okay, I think that maybe black people take better care of their clothes because they've really historically appreciated it more. Like that it's harder to come by nice things in
because
back
we're
in
more
the day.
poor, so we appreciate.
Well, but like going back to just like segregation and onward, when it was more difficult to achieve things, so you're going to appreciate it when you have it. But I don't think that's the answer.
I think the simple answer is we get talked about if we got some dirty shoes.
Yeah,
That's true.
Yeah, because like if you got dirty shoes, if you dirty anywhere, people gonna laugh and point at you. So now you got to make sure you stay fresh, make sure you stay clean. You got to take care of your shoes. And
but
then
that's still a cultural thing that comes from somewhere, right? Like so there's a cultural difference there that seems like so weird and arbitrary. I don't know what that would come from. Like you can look at other things and be like, oh, okay, well, yeah, they took that from this group and then they like it, but then they wear their hair this way or whatever. Like you can see the history behind it. I don't know, like at what point did it become like, yeah, white teenagers are cool having their sneakers be dirty unless they're really into hip hop and everything, and then they're gonna and then not. I don't know when that happened.
I know for sure hip hop had an influence on us when it comes to like fashion and fresh sneakers and stuff like that. I just don't know when the switch flipped to wear dirty Air Force Ones.
Are you saying like that's a recent thing or it's been around? Because I would argue I think some of the biggest sneakerheads are like white people at this point.
Yeah,
I would argue like that. That's more of a hipster thing to be like a sneakerhead now, to where
but
it used to be like more of a hip hop thing.
Yeah, but those are guys that like actually care about it though. Like where I feel like it's still not looked down on. Now Air Force Ones are different. Air Force Ones are different though too, because you're all like if you're choosing to wear Air Force Ones, it feels like you're more likely, like as a white dude choosing to wear Air Force Ones, you're more conscious of the culture and everything versus like you're just wearing Cons or something from back in the day. They're dirty tennis sneakers.
Yeah, and see, that's why I wanted to make it clear too, because I just had the issue with the Air Force Ones being dirty. Because I feel like Chucks, people, that's the thing, wearing dirty Chucks. Like, I ain't gonna look at you funny if you wearing dirty Chucks, but it seemed like when the Air Force Ones get dirty, you got to toss them, man, because they was only $70 at the time.
I don't think, but I do think, like, okay, is it a fair generalization though to say when it comes to athletic gear, like nice athletic gear, so whether it's sneakers or sweatsuits or anything else like that, is it fair to say that like black guys in general seem to wear newer, nicer stuff, like, and keep it cleaner than like the average? If I walk through an airport and I pick out like the 10 nicest, like best kept sweatsuits, I think I'm going to find differences. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would think we value like designer sportswear, even though that sounds kind of goofy because you're talking like $300 sweatpants, but that's something that a lot of people wear to show off and kind of stun on people. So, but I don't know. I mean, in general, I don't know. I mean, it's tough making those generalizations because there's nice dressed people everywhere. There's sloppily dressed people everywhere. So it's kind of tough to say it's a general black or white thing because there's white fashionable people too. It's not like y'all are just walking like slobs. So I don't know. But it's tough.
Yeah. But I do think because that's why it's a generalization though too. Because I wonder, like as you say that, I wonder if it's just easier. Like for me, it's a lot. Is it easier for me to get away with just being kind of like slovenly? Like I could walk
100%.
Like I can walk into a bank and if I'm wearing like flip flops and a shorts and a t-shirt and everything, like it's probably I'll still walk in there like you're gonna give me some money. Like versus there's gonna be a discrimination element or whatever. So if you're a black person going somewhere, even if you're wearing casual gear, there's a bigger likelihood you're going to be like judged harshly just because you're wearing sloppy stuff.
Yeah.
Oh yes. Okay. But I mean, that's just look, that's a whole racial discussion on that. But I mean, it's clear why that's the
right. But
why that happened. So,
but I couldn't verbalize that without really thinking about exactly like it's more a matter of what you can get away with. Partly like there's, I guess, like Figgy, you asking like why is it more acceptable? That was the original question. It was like how are you seeing people wear dirty Air Force Ones and everything? I think it's because I think maybe they just feel like they can get away with it better than I don't know.
It's funny because when I originally posted the picture on Twitter, I made sure I didn't put no racial tone to it. I just saying, it's a thing.
And those are 3 white girls, though. That was
a lot of people that made the comments that was replying to it was like, look who all wearing these sneakers.
Yeah.
And it was like making it, but now to be fair, it was a couple black people that said, hey, I kind of like that style. And some people were saying, stop making it about race. But it's crazy because like I only see white people wearing dirty Air Force Ones like that as a fashion statement. It's not like they're broke or they on hard times. It seems like it's more of a fashion statement now, and that's the part that's kind of throwing me off a little bit.
I don't like I don't know, like it's weird. Like like when I start talking about white privilege or anything, it feels like it either feels like I'm trying real hard to be, hey guys, I'm cool. I'm cool with the struggle, or like you're just or it also still comes out like there's nothing worse than like admitting various times where you have like where you realize you had a blind spot, like as a white dude, because I'm like obviously there's worse things, but it's one of those things where you're like, oh wow, yeah, I didn't realize that, and I don't really want to admit that I didn't realize that because it's plain as day. But there's like even I was driving my van for about a year with an expired registration, and my brother-in-law is black, and he's like, how long has that been expired? I was like a year, but like it's whatever, everything else is good. And he's just like shook his head. I was like, oh, I did it, didn't I? Like, I don't even say
you saying that giving me anxiety.
I know. Yeah. Like, so, but it wasn't like, obviously I know that there's a difference there, but it just, he would never, ever think to do that. And I just kind of floated by for a year, just doing it.
Wow. That must be nice, man. I'm already thinking mine is up next month. I'm already thinking about it. I got to go to HEB and get a new one.
That was up here when I was up here though, when we were living up here for, God, when was that? Anyway, it was so that it's in the sticks where it's not the same as, but yes. See, I'm already making excuses. No, guys.
That's when we get caught slipping in the sticks. Every time I get pulled over, it's in like a suburb or something. Where I be like,
oh yeah, we're just,
I got to go to court, or I got to go pay a ticket all the way an hour and a half away from where I'm at. So
yeah,
it's tough.
I'm sorry, man.
Seth Payne apologizes on behalf of all white people.
Yeah.
All right, man. Like we said, I keep saying I don't want to keep you too long. We didn't keep you on too long already.
All right, I gotta go.
Everybody, make sure y'all check out. I know y'all do already. If you don't, you need to check out Payne and Pendergast 6 to 10 Monday through Friday. You also can follow him on Twitter. You're at Seth Payne, right?
That's Seth C. Payne.
Seth C. Payne. Okay, some asshole took Seth Payne, didn't they?
Yeah, he's got one tweet. It says, "I hate Twitter."
From
2008.
Yeah. Somebody took Ryan Rockett, and I thought Elon Musk was going to get rid of these people who weren't active on Twitter because he hasn't tweeted anything. But this guy is still hogging up Ryan Rockett. I don't like it.
And hogging up a person with that legitimate name too.
Yes.
That's a messed up
Even
thing.
though I think this guy, I think his actual name might be Ryan Rockett, because there was somebody in my college, a white guy named Ryan Rockett with the same spelling. It was crazy.
Really?
Yeah.
Have you ever ran across somebody with the same name as you?
Just because of the internet. Like, so I know there's like we interviewed, there's a coach named Seth Payne. So that gets confused. He was a defensive lineman in college too, and now he's a defensive line coach, I think. So yeah, that's the only through the internet. I've never run into like a Spider-Man pointing at Spider-Man situation.
Somebody hit me up thinking I was their nephew. So apparently they have a nephew named Edward Gilliard. So they hit me. No, I wouldn't. Nah, but yeah, she hit me up. She was like, "Oh, I thought you was my nephew." I'm like, "That I never run across people with my last name Gilliard at all." So that was the first time I ever ran across somebody like that. So name.
Is that like, I don't know. That sounds like French though. Is there a Cajun? Could that be Cajun or something?
I think so. I ain't really do a deep dive on it, but every time I search my last name, French come up, and then somebody else brung a good point saying maybe I got some New Orleans roots or something.
Yeah.
But not that I don't know. I'm gonna have to do a deep dive into it and see where it's from. because I know one actor who had my last name too. It was the guy that played on The Wire. I forgot his name. Larry Gilliard Jr.
Huh.
The guy that played D'Angelo on The Wire. He was on the first season of The Wire, I want to say. First or second season. But that's the only celebrity I know that had my last name like that. So
Yeah,
I don't know if we're related. We might be related. I don't know.
Gilliard.
Seth, did you ever request NRG to play House of Pain Jump Around every time you got a tackle, just like JJ Watt had Turned Down for What?
I always thought it would be cool if they did, but I didn't want to ask. So it's like, I really wish they would have, but they didn't.
I feel like you would have got tired of. I feel like we would have got tired of that song pretty quick, because I got tired of Turned Down for What really quick. Number one, I don't like that song. Period.
Yeah, I know. There's something.
It's really annoying.
Yeah, who is that?
It's Lil Jon, but somebody else's song. Is Lil Jon doing a Turn Down for What though?
I feel like Lil Jon. What's the Lil Jon? Is he? How is Lil Jon separate from like his most notable hooks there, or like whatever? He's got like what 4 or 5 like verbal utterances that he's
the what the stuff like that. Okay,
I feel like long term that's hurt him more than helped him. I mean, those royalties are nice. I don't get you wrong,
exactly.
I think the Dave Chappelle skit kind of I don't want to say watered it down a little bit, but it kind of mocked him a little bit.
That's a good, it does come, and then the high school pictures did too.
Yeah.
But he's on. Have you seen that reality show where they design stuff? He's like partnered up with the designer, and they do like these interior design things that are freaking crazy. And Lil Jon is like kind of like the super creative one, and she's the one that tries to figure out like how to actually make it work. And he's got really good ideas. It's the last thing I expected to see. It's like flipping through the channels one day, and then I had to binge watching it.
All right, I didn't even know he was on a reality show. That's crazy. I gotta check it out.
Check that out.
I know this is the longest outro ever. I'm sorry, but again, also thank you for the reading recommendation. I'm gonna check out that Thinking Fast and Slow as well.
Yeah, it's good.
So, thank you for joining us, Seth. It's been a long time coming. Really glad we got to talk to you and pick your brain a little bit, man. So, anything you want to plug? I know you have a podcast out.
It's Payne and Pendergast, 6 to 10 a.m. on 6:10 a.m. and my YouTube channel is the Seth Payne Show. So that's been a lot of fun. I'm doing that every day now.
Okay. Thanks. I'm not going to be patronizing and ask people to check out when it's. I'm sure you have way more viewers than us, so I'm not going to be like, yeah, you guys go check out Seth's show. Like, okay, I'm sure you already are checking it out.
I've only been doing it for a few months though, so I'm growing. So just check it out. Check out the Seth Payne show.
Yeah. All right, really appreciate it, man. Appreciate all y'all in the comments and the chat as well for joining us. And great time with you, man. And hope to see you soon, man.
All right, guys. Thanks, man.